Hello everybody, Pete Cook again and the Science Revolution. Now in the last video what we did was to answer the biggest problem in science. The biggest. One that nobody talks about. And that problem was simply that the laws of physics, physical matter, do not and cannot explain matter changing into living things. Never mind a human being. But we solved the problem, or we saw that it was a human problem. It wasn't our science that was wrong, we're just analysing the scientific data incorrectly. We're trying to force all the behaviour of matter into classical physics, and it doesn't work. Classical physics is very, very simple. It just says stick things together. At the gravitational level, it says fall together. But the matter falls together and then self-organises into a beautiful clock. And the clock can't be explained by the physics. Same at the atomic level. Atomic forces just stick things together. But matter sticks together in beautiful molecular shapes, which can't be explained by physics. And then matter has another kind of physics we call quantum physics. So physics separates into two. We still haven't explained how the physics changes into complex systems, gravitational systems and living systems. But we answered the problem, and we saw that instead of trying to say everything must be classical physics, we said that matter only behaves according to the rules of mathematics. Now let's just put those four different kinds of behaviour into the mathematics. Classical physics, when physics behaves according to the laws of fields, gravitational fields, electromagnetic fields, and later we get strong and weak nuclear forces. Now fields are properties of space, and what this is in mathematical terms is that both matter and space behave to geometric rules. The space forms geometric shapes, which turns the matter into geometric shapes, spheres, and the geometric shapes of space always have the same property. They form the shape that makes it the most efficient way to get from A to B along a curve. Now there's some excellent videos by Vsauce called Which Way is Down, which shows that gravity is just a geometric description of what's happening in space, and the Brachistone, which shows cycloids. Now cycloid shapes, if you roll something down a cycloid shape, it's the fastest way to get from A to B, and it's a special curve. Now he makes two curves, one a straight line and a cycloid shape, drops some little rollers, and the cycloid one wins. That explains space-time to you, curvature of space-time. The clock going along the cycloid records a shorter amount of time because it's the quickest way to get from A to B, the principle of least action. So that's what classical physics is. It's just when matter behaves to geometric rules. Quantum physics, quanta, units, is when matter behaves to arithmetic rules. Simple. And there's always been a contradiction between the two. But now we're saying they're both rules of mathematics and they're self-consistent. I'm not trying to unite them by looking at the physics. I'm looking at the mathematics. So I've got geometric rules, arithmetic rules. And they're both deterministic, predictable. And then we get the really special rules that can explain the rest of the behaviour of matter. Chaos and turbulence, a chaotic pendulum. Chaotic behaviour turns out only to be chaotic at the individual event. Systems all show the same mathematical behaviour, and they're governed by two constants called the Feynman constants, and they're all the same. Give me living systems, non-living systems. That's statistical behaviour, it's mathematical. And then the one that we really need is complexity. Now complexity is when matter gets into systems which conserve and feed back information. And that's how you get the solar system, which has chaotic parts, self-organizing parts from complexity, and then gravity making the thing move and stick together. So you've done it. You've explained using 4 fundamental behaviors of matter how we see an environment which has chaotic parts, self-organizing parts, parts which are gravitational, and parts which are atomic. So that really does give us something, a new start in science, where everything behaves the same set of rules. Now, because we've been in such a mess, trying to explain everything just using predictable classical rules, you can't do it. You end up with nonsense like this, where we've said before that the second law of thermodynamics says everything must always go from order to disorder. Because I haven't got any rules which show self-organization, I can't go this way. But now we have got them, and we've explained that they're mathematical rules, so they're consistent. So now this, we can see clearly, is nonsense, because the self-assembly of neutrons and protons goes this way, the self-assembly of atoms goes this way, molecules goes this way, galaxies and solar systems goes this way, life and viruses goes this way, economic systems, social systems, all goes this way. And traditionally, we've had no explanation for that, so people end up talking nonsense. Now that nonsense can stop. So now we've got a sensible explanation for the reality we observe. And I said in the last video, I was going to show you a little algorithm which sits at the bottom of all the systems, physical systems and living systems. It's the same algorithm. Now, people know that this algorithm is going to be there. So here's Brian Cox, and he devotes a whole page of his book to saying we must have something sensible to talk about and simple. There's a mystery at the heart of science for which, as yet, we have no explanation, and that is that this universe is simple. So we're looking for something simple. Underlying all the astonishing complexity, and we now have an answer for how we get complexity, appears to be a magnificent simplicity. And nowhere is that simplicity made more obvious than in the construction of the elements. The elements form the periodic table, which is completely ordered. So we're looking for a little simplicity under the periodic table, which also is ordered, and it must be based upon a mathematical rule, which is the same in mathematics and physics and biology. We've got it. So that must show up in the neutron and the proton, because these are the first 2 composite systems in the universe. They make themselves. They go from disorder of a quark-gluon soup into a very, very ordered pair of systems. Now notice they come as a pair. Now if I go to the base of mathematics, I must see the same thing, and I do. The first 2 prime numbers. Prime numbers build all the arithmetic system. They build it, they're the building blocks. Marcus de Saussure already calls them the atoms of arithmetic. So I must see the same pattern. Now the first 2 prime numbers are 2 and 3, and they build all the other numbers, all of them. And Nikola Tesla was the first to show that primes and the composite numbers they build are a self-organizing system. Just look at what he's written here. A self-organizing system. So mathematics is a self-organizing system. Physics is a self-organizing system. I've got 2 quarks, which are opposite. And I've got an inverse. 2 ups and a down. 2 downs and an up. A relationship between the numbers 2 and then 3. It changes into something new. I don't get the number 1 because everything in physics and mathematics boils down to a pair. 2 leptons which change into each other. 2 quarks which change into each other. And the leptons change the quarks. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 that change into a triplet code. I've got exactly the same thing in biology. 2 nucleotides which change into each other. 2 other nucleotides which change into each other, and that flips over into triplet code. DNA is based upon non-overlapping triplet code. So physics, biology and mathematics all use the same common principle, the same code. Now I'm not the first person to notice this. This is a book on particle physics, the best one written by Frank Close. And he's seen that there's going to be this universality based on mathematics, but he can't finish it off. Now he's talking about beta decay among the generations of matter. And he says, remarkably, all of these turn out to be linked together in a way we can illustrate using nothing more sophisticated than the geometry of right-angled triangles and Pythagoras' theorem, and reveal that there is indeed a profound universality at work. So, the base of geometry, I've got a pair and an opposite one. The base of arithmetic, I've got a pair, number 2, and then an opposite with 3. And I get something new. I get a triangle, a quark, or the base unit of code in DNA. Now that's a wonderful thing to be able to say, that we've actually got a universal code. It's called the principle of composition. And as soon as I realized that you could put everything into that code, I went to the back of the book and suddenly wrote down anything that you can think of goes into the same pattern. 3 pairs. 3 pairs of quarks, 3 pairs of leptons, 3 pairs of numbers, positive and negative, odd and even, real imaginary, 3 pairs of fundamental forces, a relationship between space and matter, gravity. That's the first relationship. And then magnetic relationship and electrical relationship, and it goes simple to complex. And the numbers will come in the same pattern as the forces. So I got equal and opposite forces and numbers, electromagnetism. And yet you can see it, I've got it. An equal and opposite pair. Then I must have an asymmetrical pair, strong and weak, odd and even. It must show up also in genetics, dominant and recessive, male and female, equal and opposite. It's the same pattern. The principle of composition. Now, we put up here all the things which we can now put into the principle of composition. It just shows up everywhere. It even shows up in multicellular life, an equal and opposite pair. Animals and plants, which mathematically are mirrors of each other. Photosynthesis and respiration mirror each other. And the other multicellular life, the fungi, break these two down and decompose them. So instead of a pile of bricks just always falling apart, that's something decomposing or a supernova, matter then gathers itself back together and reorders itself. As a solar system or a new living thing, I've got common sense to describe the matter we observe out there. So we've seen that at the base of physics we've got 4 units. 2 leptons, 2 quarks. The base of biology. 4 units, 2 base nucleotides and then 2 other base nucleotides. The base of the whole thing, I've got 4 fundamental kinds of behaviour of matter. 2 simple and 2 complex. Classical physics, the physics of fields. Quantum physics, the physics of units and arithmetic behaviour, geometric. arithmetic, chaos and order, systems governed by the Fine-Grained bound constants, statistical, and then complexity, which is based on harmonic behaviour and feedback. So I've got 2 unpredictable and 2 predictable, and they build the system we call the universe. So that's so simple. One underlying set of rules, the principle of composition, a base pair of pairs going over into triplet code. Now, that triplet code just carries on until it gets to chemistry, biology, it makes sugar, C6H12O6. So I can just see that everything is the same pattern. It even goes on to animal behaviour, economic behaviour, which again uses the most economic way of doing something. Same as gravity, the quickest way from A to B is to follow the cycloid path. The most economic way of doing something is based on a triplet code. Now, economics is based on theory of games. That just means choices and unknowns. And there are 2 little games at the base of game theory, noughts and crosses, and paper, scissors, stone, which is based on a relationship between 2s and 3s, the first 2 prime numbers. So there we have it, a very, very simple explanation of reality, which is all consistent. And in the next video, I'm going to show you the principle of composition at work in all the different kinds of reality that you can think of. So now we don't have to start teaching in separate departments. We have to start teaching mathematics, physics, and life, chemistry, all from the same basic principle. The one which Brian Cox knows is there, the one that he wants to see most. And we can all stop saying that reality can only go from order into disorder. That is nonsense. Thanks for watching. See you next time.